Garrett Wilson is something special, and I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to that at 2.
There was no player that impacted his team more in last year's draft than Jamar Chase. And if you can get that player in this year's draft, Garrett Wilson, comparable to Devontae Adams, he will have Jamar Chase type impact. 9 guys making over $20 million at wide receiver. Guys, yesterday I came out here and said, if it's not Malik Willis, I want to hear Aiden Hutchinson, his name be called. I want to revise that, actually. I made a mistake yesterday. If it's not Malik Willis, I need to hear Garrett Wilson at wide receiver.
Over Sauce?
Garrett Wilson is better at being a wide receiver than Aiden Hutchinson is at being a defensive end and getting to the quarterback. Sauce Gardner, fine. Okay? Penei Sewell, fine. Micah Parsons, fine.
Fine.
There was no player that impacted his team more in last year's draft than Jamar Chase. Nobody. And if you can get that player in this year's draft, that's somebody you have to consider.
I like Garrett Wilson a lot. When we broke down the wide receivers, he was number 1 on my list when I broke them down. I still think he's the number 1 wide receiver on the list. You listen to what Dan Orlovsky said. Listen, he's had Brian Hartline, who I hated when he was at Ohio State. It cost me some money, but that's neither here nor there. Brian Hartline is teaching these guys how to run routes. Brian Hartline is teaching these guys how to catch in traffic. Brian Hartline is teaching these guys how to adjust on the fly. And I talk about it all the time. Chris Olave came in to he came into football last year as the number 1 wide receiver in the country. He was the number 1 wide receiver in the country. He was in line to break the Big Ten records in touchdown. He was in line to break Ohio State's record, in which I think he tied David Boston with 37 touchdowns career. All of this was lined up for Chris Olave. Insert Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson took the show from him. Jackson Smith and Jigba played really well too. That's Maz's guy. But Garrett Wilson, he just looks different. You saw the catches in the Michigan game. He can be covered. And he's still open. That's what you want from a threat. That's what you want from a top 10, top 5 wide receiver pick in the NFL draft. When he's covered, he's open. When he's open, he's really open. He can take the top off. That means he runs in the 4.3s. That's what you got to have. You see Jamar Chase. These guys are getting by the defenders. Hell, they just played Denzel Ward, who's another Ohio State guy, $100 million. You know why he got paid $100 million? Because you got guys like Garrett Wilson coming into this league every year and this draft class. Garrett Wilson is something special, and I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to that at 2, because he's going to be a damn fine player in this NFL, which is a receiver-based league now. You got to have you some of these studs.
Hell yeah.
I just still think the pick for the Lions got to be an edge rusher at 2. But if they call Garrett Wilson's name, you know
Braylon,
what? I'm not mad.
Let me ask you though, because at 2, you're at the point in your rebuild for the Detroit Lions where you have to take, in my opinion, the best player available or the best players on your board within reason, right? I mean, you're not going to take a left tackle with your first pick within reason. If you have Garrett Wilson graded here.
Yes.
If you have Sauce Gardner graded here, and you have Aiden Hutchinson graded here, why would you take that lesser player just because he plays in a position of need?
I'm not taking Aiden Hutchinson, so maybe let's start there. I don't have Aiden Hutchinson as my guy.
Thibodeau.
I still got Thibodeau. Thibodeau is still a 91% grade out defensive end, a rush end. I'm telling you. Kayvon Thibodeau is going to be a much better player. People have allowed that narrative to creep in there. Oh, he cares about other things. And now all of a sudden the narrative is, well, he's not a Dan Campbell type of guy, but Baker Mayfield is all of a sudden. I'm trying to tell you that Kayvon Thibodeau is the pick for the Detroit Lions. With that being said, he's a guy that's going to get to the quarterback. He's going to get you 14 to 15 sacks a year. That is going to help. You look at any team that has success, I'll point to you on the left end, and I'll tell you who that guy was. Hell, even Cincinnati. Cincinnati had a guy with 16 sacks last year, and they paid him handsomely. You got to have those guys. His name eludes right now, number 94. That's why I didn't mention it. So that's why I want to rush in so bad, because he can impact right now. That defense was not good last year. It wasn't. You can talk about the 1917 Ravens and 1917 Minnesota. I understand that. As a whole, that defense was not good. That's why I want to rush in so bad. But to Garrett Wilson, if they call Garrett Wilson's name, I'm not going to sneeze.
I'm not either.
He's a hell of a player.
I'm not either.
He's a hell of a player.
There's a few players. I'm going to be happy no matter who they take. Can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
That's a fact. Because if they take Thibodeau, if they take Hutchinson, if they take Sauce Gardner, if they take Malik Willis, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, it's going to improve the team. That player is going to improve this team. You and I have been politicking for Malik Willis because we're dreaming that he's going to be the next it guy.
He's going to be.
And that's what we want. We want Lamar Jackson running our offense.
Russell Wilson.
Lamar Jackson almost won 2 Heisman trophies.
Yeah.
So don't let that pick 32 fool you. That was the NFL's idiot.
Yeah.
That was
Correct.
them being idiots.
Yes.
That Joker
they wanted
has
to be a receiver.
He had tape on top of tape on top of tape about him being an NFL quarterback, and he should have won 2 Heisman
But his
trophies.
numbers weren't great.
He had 4,000 yards and 1,700 rushing 2 years in a row.
No, he did. My bad.
He was 3,900, 1,600. Then he was 4,200 and 1,400.
Oh, man, this is so fun.
What the hell's the difference? What do we know? I'm so sick of
None of
talking.
us know, to be honest.
Mock drafts. I don't even want the word mock anymore in my life.
I'm just happy we're at least starting to get into the same fluidity of just wanting the best player available. And like having a couple names. Like we got about 7 names on that list, and I think that we're starting to get to the point where one of those names is good.